very turned off by her. We do not need comedy in the bedroom. Let's get down to business. I feel like a hypocrite. Excuse me, who are you talking to? It was a bit I'm not understanding where the forbidden is coming from. Hey, welcome back to my channel. I said that this year was going to be the year that I will be reading a bunch of series, duets, duologies, trilogies. That's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be reading the first book in a bunch of different series. I actually started this book about 2-3 days ago. I grabbed my Kindle to show y'all the cover, forgetting that I still have ads on my new Kindle, but I started Capone by Jacquel. I don't know how she pronounces her name. I'm loving this. There's a bunch of different series that are, I guess, intertwined. I've seen people talk about Capri a lot, and I was gonna read that, but I saw this one, and I was like, I wanna read this one first. And I'm glad I did, because I'm sure I could read whichever one first, but when you look at the book, for example, this one shows Capone season 1, and then another spin-off series says like season 2. I'm assuming I should be starting with this one regardless, so I'm glad that I decided to pick this one up, because I didn't realize it. I just did it to do it. Now, what is it about necessarily? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Forbidden romance, I guess. That's what it says. It says that she's like forbidden fruit. I'm not getting where it's forbidden, because it's brother-in-law's ex-girlfriend slash first love. So Capone's sister is Capri, and Capri's married. That's why I thought I should have been reading Capri first, but this is the one that says season 1, so I'm starting with this one. Capone's sister Capri is married to a guy named Naeem. He in his past had a first love or somebody named Aaron. Now Aaron is our FMC in here, and Capone is our MMC in here. So I'm not understanding where the forbidden is coming from, because that's not even your brother. That's your brother-in-law. And that's kind of all it says. It just says that they cross each other's paths, and it's like now he can't stop thinking about her or whatever. What I love about this book is Aaron's job. Aaron is a bus driver, like a public transportation bus driver. I absolutely love that. She is driving the bus one day, but she's on a specific side of town. She gets into a little kerfuffle. Capone sees the entire thing go down. Wait, was it a kerfuffle? It wasn't a kerfuffle. I think she just runs into her ex-best friend, but Naima. I need to look it up. I don't care. I don't feel like it. But she ends up running into the brother-in-law of his. And Capone's checking it out like, if you hurt my sister, like what's going on? And he ends up finding out who she is. Where I'm at now, I'm not that far into it. I'm maybe 30%. I don't even think I'm 30% of the way in. 27% of the way through, page 75. Now he is some kind of, why am I dipping? I don't want to say kingpin. Like, what even is that? He's like a big name on the streets. He has a child, so it's kind of single dad as well, but he still canoodles with the mom of his child. I don't like that, because I know she's gonna cause some trouble, but is it gonna be good trouble? Like entertaining trouble? We're gonna see. So yeah, so where I'm at, they've just had their second run-in. Technically third. He tells her that technically third because he saw her that first time. She didn't see him. He rode her bus. He's on her bus right now. They're chatting it up. And corrections. Let's start with the kerfuffle at the beginning. I was definitely thinking of a different book. I don't remember what book it was. This was different. So at the beginning of this book, she's a bus driver, right? And I believe on her route, maybe she had gotten out to take a little break, but she has a younger brother named Jaden. Jaden is friends with someone that she does not like, and she ended up telling him like, back away, stay away from Jaden. And of course, his name is Timmy. Timmy's like all up in her face, and her friend from childhood, Naeem, ends up like back up, whatever. And Capone saw from another building. Let me take this off because I'm choking. Anyway, so at the beginning of this book, we have why am I so far? At the beginning of this book, there's a prologue, and it starts with, it's 13 years in the past. Her brother, I don't think remembers, but she witnessed her dad, her mom, or their mom, and then himself. So we all know there's something more to this story. There is definitely something more because of where I'm at. That's kind of a little backstory for her that we got in the prologue that I totally forgot about. I totally forgot Capone was in a video. I finished it. I ended up giving it, I want to say a 4-star. I told myself I was not going to be bringing up this book again, but I feel the need to bring it up because I feel like a hypocrite. I see a lot of Luca. If you know, you know. I see a lot of Luca in Capone. The problem is I like Capone. And one of my issues with Luca was that I did not like him. He was very obsessive. He was very head of the table, giving alpha. But yet Capone is giving the same thing. And that's why I feel like I need to kind of say my piece. The difference for me is that in Luca, the FMC, we got a full-on description and history of her past abusive relationship. And I couldn't help but compare that relationship and how she described that man to Luca. And it was giving the same thing. She thought it was cute, like she was into Luca. Whereas, now we're done with that. We done with it. With this book, we don't really know her past relationships like that. We don't know that Aaron was in an abusive relationship. This just seems like what she likes. This, you know, head of the table, alpha kind of male. And I'm here for it. I enjoyed it. Look, I love a good urban fiction. I did go ahead and start the second book. I think I'm at around 25% to 30%. We're not going to be talking about that book in here. But I also will say that this book, Capone, and I'm also, you know, reading the second book. But this series, I feel like a mixture of Ethic by Ashley Antoinette and Luca. But the plot, this and this reminds me of Ethic. The ending, oh my gosh. Now, I'm already well into the second book, so I know how things continue after how it ends. I was sitting right here, I'm gonna include the clip. I was sitting right here and I was like, I know that the second book is gonna have an even bigger plot twist. And not even plot twist, maybe cliffhanger is the better word to use. Hello. The Trouble with Hating You. This is a South Asian romance. Leah or Laya. How am I gonna be saying it in my head? Well, it won't matter because once I start the audiobook, I'll hear the pronunciation. I'm gonna go with Leah. Leah is a biochemical engineer and a single woman. Her parents throw a dinner party and she doesn't realize that it's actually a setup for her to meet some man. So hopefully she like falls in love and gets married. She ends up running out of the party. She ends up meeting that same man named Jay at her work. And he's some kind of lawyer that they hire to save her company. So I guess this turns into an office romance, kind of like a dislike to like, because he wasn't too happy with how that dinner party went and how she just ran off. I have read something similar to this and it didn't go well. And it was a cute cover too. I was so surprised I didn't like the book. Hopefully this goes better. Oh, I have like 6 minutes. Let's start it. Author's note. Okay, they do have trigger warnings. Non-graphic reference to SA, death, and trauma. Chapter 1. And this looks a little thick for a romance, but I think it's the thickness of the paper. And let's chat about The Trouble with Hating You. I read about 50-ish pages. After I clocked back in after lunch, I listened to the audiobook. I stopped on chapter 18. Page 176. I think I'm probably 51% of the way through. Make sure these are good. First and foremost, I do not think this author is for me. This is the second book by her that I've read. It is different than the first one of hers that I read. The first one of hers is A Drop of Venom, which was her new release last year. It's like a retelling on South Asian mythology, I believe. I hope I'm not lying straight through my teeth. I wasn't a huge fan of it either. I will say this about a lot of the rom-coms that I read. For some reason, I'm always so hesitant because I'm always afraid that I'm not gonna like the writing. I don't know what it is, but I feel like a lot of rom-com authors, as in the ones that I have read, a lot of them, their writing style is so similar. Like, I don't understand. As of right now, I'm leaning towards a 3-star. let's get into the characters. I was so shocked when we got a glimpse at how Leah's dad acts, because again, I have read many books similar to this where the parents are trying to arrange like a relationship or a marriage and trying to introduce, you know, their daughter or son, but I think the ones that I've read, it's been their daughter to another guy. And the parents are always hard on them, but at some point they realize that they've been hurting their daughter and they feel bad and their behavior changes instantly and their tune changes and they're like, oh, you know, I didn't mean da 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 da. I just do not see that happening with Leah's dad. I'm sure it will, because that's normally how it goes. My gosh. I think this is all the peppers I'm eating, which is good because I have examples. So the very first scene, I'm not gonna touch it with this. The very first scene that we get with them, this is page 5. She is going to her parents' house because she's heard that they're having some kind of dinner. She didn't realize that this dinner is gonna be her getting to know Jay, who is the guy, which it don't get that far because she leaves. But anyway, we'll talk about that. The mom is cooking, right? She's cooking dinner. The dad tells her, make me some cha. Is that how you pronounce that? Cha? Sha? Che? K? C-H-A. I don't know how to pronounce it. And the mom is like flustered and stuff, and he continues and he's like, and hurry. You know I like a cup of tea at this time of day. Excuse me, who are you talking to? Because it can't be me. And that's exactly the type of energy that Leah gives her dad, which I will say I do love that about her personality, because we're going to get into how I feel about her. I'm curious how far that's gonna go and how he's gonna change, if he changes towards the end. Let's get into Leah herself. I was very turned off by her, to be honest, because she has this feistiness to her. I like it in certain moments, but when she first meets Jay, they actually literally run into each other. When she finds out that they've set this date up or whatever, she's like, no, like, I'm leaving. And as she's escaping through the door, she runs into Jay, literally. And it was the funniest part, to be honest. She was so like, she was so mean to him. They end up meeting again. This is like their first real encounter that they have. And I mean, I swear the only thing she didn't do was bite his head off. Personally, I was a little turned off. However, I'm curious if she's like that for a reason. So I mentioned that this book does say that it references an SA that happens, and that SA was towards her, was something that she experienced. That person has been spreading so much about her that a lot of people in their community don't like her, because they talk about how she's fast and she's da 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 da, and that's all stemming from the man that did that to her, you know, spreading rumors about her, and now everyone else is talking about it. I feel like that's hardened her a lot. I could be getting ahead of myself just because we don't know how she was before that happened. As far as their actual romance goes, because again, I'm a little more than halfway, it's fine. You can tell that he's very smitten with her. Oh. I'm gonna continue reading. Let's talk. For a while now, I've actually been wanting to step away from giving books a specific rating. So this was a 3-star, this was a 4.75, whatever. And I really want to just give it a range. So this was a 4 to 5 star. This was a 2 to 3 star. This is a perfect example. I really don't know what to give it. But I would say that I would give this anywhere from a 3 to a 4 star. I would put it in that range. Before I got to the conflict, I was leaning towards a 3 star. And now I'm thinking maybe a 3.5. Mainly because when the conflict hit, I was immediately immersed. And again, I've said this before, I love when authors get different emotions out of me besides, you know, being happy. When the conflict hit for this, I was frustrated, I was angry. But what I loved was that, again, I had mentioned that Leah turned me off a bit, but thankfully, because of the type of personality that she has, because of what she's been through, because of that hardened exterior of hers. I loved how she handled the conflict, meaning she didn't back down. We kind of got a build up to what that conflict was going to be earlier on. Again, she handled it good. The way that her community was so nasty towards her, I didn't mention it, but, well, actually I did. I mentioned that Leah and Jay, that first encounter after falling into him, that first encounter was at some kind of like hall. I think it's some kind of religious hall, but they use it as kind of like a rec center, and that's where they had met. And a lot of the book does take place at that place. The whole community is there, and they are so nasty towards her. There's a villain in this book, and that person mentions that, oh, you know, I sanitize everything after you touch da-da-da-da-da and whatever. They just don't like how Americanized she is, but it also has to do with that one person spreading these rumors about her, how she's fast and easy, and the way that she dresses. I'm also not surprised the direction that we went in with the conflict, because I read A Drop of Venom by this author, and that also was a critique on SA and how people, or some people, treat SA victims. Without spoiling anything, we kind of got the same thing in this book as well. As far as the romance goes, I did bookmark a part. I did mention that a lot of the rom-coms that I read, the writing is so similar, and it's like I can't really pinpoint exactly what it is. I'm gonna read you this scene that played out, right? This is him. Leah, you're making it very difficult for me not to take you into your room. My gut clenched. I thought you didn't want to have sex with me. I wouldn't have sex with you. We'd make love. We'd turn down that bed. I'd have you making all kinds of noises and calling out my name like you'd lost your mind. She says, you sure are full of yourself. And he said, and you'd be full of me. Why are you holding back then? He grinned. I've got other parts of you to unlock first. Doesn't mean I'm not turned on by you. And it goes on. There's more to the scene. I find that to be very cheesy and corny. And from the books that I've read, I find those to be more so in rom-coms. If I'm reading a spicy romance with real people on the cover, like, you know the type of books I'm talking about, I'm not gonna get that. I only get that in rom-coms. I guess because they're really trying to give us both romance and comedy, and to me it just does not work. We don't need that's it right there. We don't need comedy in the bedroom. That right there, I'm gonna keep saying that because that's exactly what I mean, and I'm gonna say it again. We do not need comedy in the bedroom. Let's get down to business, which in rom-coms I'd rather not read it anyway. I'm gonna probably give it on Storygraph a 3.5. This is the first book in a series. Am I going to continue it? Probably. I feel like I am cheating a little bit because the purpose of this video was to read the first book in a series where the entire series is going to be focused around the same people. With Capone, I never said whether or not I was going to continue Capone. I did. I actually finished the trilogy. I gave the whole thing a 4-star. Every single book. But Capone followed the same people. This book, it's the first book in a series, but it's one of those interconnected romances where this book is Jay and Leah. The next book is gonna be another couple. So this is kind of cheating, which is why I really should maybe read a 4th book in here. Honestly, that next book, First Love Take 2 or whatever it's called, now that will probably be my last book of hers. Let's get into the last book of this video. Laws of Depravity or Depravity? Girl, I don't know. This is about a serial killer who every 10 years, for the past 30 years, has murdered and continues to murder a dozen clergymen in scenes that emulate the deaths of Jesus and his disciples. Crazy, I know. 2 NYPD detectives and 1 FBI agent are on the hunt for this killer. I just got back from the library. I'm gonna get into what I got as well. I always do that. I sat and read 48 pages. Now you're probably like, girl, that's not even a lot. I know, but I read it back to back. Like as soon as I sat down from looking around, I got into it and I was just so immersed in it. The scenes the gore, the grotesqueness of everything. Oh my gosh. It's literally in the prologue. I was like this. Oh! It's kind of reminding me of Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. And personally, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I thought it was boring. But this is everything that I would have wanted from Pretty Girls so far. I thought that my library had the audiobook. I forgot they don't. I had to press suggest. However, I'm glad that I don't have the audiobook because I think it would be too confusing. It's told in third person and there's so many names, and sometimes on the same page it's like we're going to another person, and I'm glad that I'm not listening to it because I think I would be lost. It's very interesting because of the layout of the plot. We get a prologue of a murder, we get chapter 1 of a murder, and I believe we get a murder in chapter 2, and then we get introduced to the detectives, and it's very all over the place. Already, I think it was chapter 5, I gasped so loud because there was kind of a little twist. So the two detectives are named Quincy and Fee, and the FBI agent is Janet. And I don't want to say who it is. There was a character, I thought we were going somewhere else. I was like, what? But then I get to the next chapter. It was a misunderstanding. Not even a misunderstanding. The author had set it up to look a certain way. And then you get to the next chapter and it's like, that's not what you thought it was. Let's get into my library haul really quick. I only got 3 books. I wasn't supposed to get any, but I saw that one of my holds was finally available. And that hold was Immortal Dark. Very nervous to get into it because when it first came out, everyone was talking about it. And now all of a sudden, I'm starting to see people DNF it. What do you mean? This Could Be Us, which is in the same series as Before I Let Go. It's just focusing on different characters. Big Chicas Don't Cry. I believe this is going to be my 3rd book of hers. Or my 2nd. I might know of another book of hers. On my way home, I'm excited to... I'm ready to jump back in. Yeah. I'm not done yet. However, everything is going really well. The problem is I'm only on page 122. I definitely thought I was going to be able to finish this in one day. I don't know why I thought that, because one thing about me, when I'm anxious or a little depressed or doom scrolling, I can't turn off my brain and just escape and start reading. I don't know if it's because I don't like the distraction and I don't like being distracted. I want to think about whatever I'm thinking about or what, or it never distracts me enough, but I don't like reading when I feel that way. So I did not finish, but today is Monday. Typically, I read more during the week anyway, Monday through not even Friday, Monday through Thursday. I think because I'm at work the whole day, it's like I might as well try to read as much as I can, whereas on the weekend, it's like I'm not working. So I have all the time in the world to read, and then I don't. Here's the thing, I'm having to read it slow. There's so much going on. There's so many names, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but it is told in third person. So we'll be talking about one character and then all of a sudden we'll mention another one. And another thing that I didn't mention is this book does something really odd. I just don't know how to feel about it yet. It reminds me of those movies where it's a group of people. I'll just mention a spy movies because I feel like a lot of 2000s spy movies used to do that. I don't really think movies do that anymore. But you know, when we're being introduced, I have a good example. You know, when we're getting introduced to characters in a movie, like a heist movie, it's kind of like a freeze frame. And then all of a sudden we'll get name, age, what they do, whatever. A good example would be The Italian Job with Mark Wahlberg. When Mark Wahlberg's character is talking to Charlize Theron's character, everyone's coming in one by one and he's telling them a little bit about that person. This book does that. A character is mentioned for the first time and we're kind of introduced to them, and then all of a sudden we go into their life story. So for example, Fee, one of the detectives, he is, I guess, going to dinner with his dad. His dad's name is Clay. I don't know why I remember that. I remember a lot of characters' names in here for some reason, and I never remember characters' names. And then all of a sudden, we get introduced to Clay, and then we get his life story. His career, him marrying and then having fee and all of that. And mind you, it takes place on like 2 pages, a page and a half. The reason why I don't know how to feel about it is because it feels like extra information, but is that extra information going to come in hand in the end? Because right now I'm not seeing it. For example, there's a little boy in here. He was 11 when he committed suicide. We find out that he was actually an SA victim of one of the priests that was killed. We are introduced to the mom. I think the mom's name is Elena. We kind of get introduced to her through Quincy, who is the other detective. Now, Elena, we get introduced to her husband. Not her husband, her dad. We get introduced to her dad and his story and him being excited to have like a grandchild or something. We haven't revisited her dad, so why did we get that extra information of her dad? I'm back. You know what that means. I believe I ended up giving this a 4.75. If not, I'm gonna put whatever it was that I gave it at the bottom. I ate this up. It's exactly what I was expecting. At the same time, I don't know how I feel with some parts. So for example, we know who the serial killer is. Obviously the detectives and the FBI agent, they're trying to figure out who it is, and then they do obviously find out. I don't know how realistic that was, to be honest. I mean, I know obviously some killers can kill and kill and kill and not be caught, but the way that this person was outsmarting everyone was so insane. As far as the detail that we got, I think I explained, you know, sometimes we would get the background of some people. It did end up being useful because sometimes that same character would pop back up and it makes sense what they helped with because we got that background information of them. I believe in the last clip I said that we hadn't revisited Elena or Elaine's dad or something. Of course, as soon as I turned off the camera and I continued reading where I was, of course, his name is Romero. Now all of a sudden we're getting him, you know. Now I will say that's the one part that threw me. I don't know why we got Elena and Romero. I understand that it's her son who committed suicide because of one of the priests, and also she serves a different purpose as well for a character in the story, a different plot line, storyline, whatever. But I also know there's a prequel. And it's actually in this book. I haven't read it yet because I don't know, is it the entire prequel? Is it a sample? It does say gripping prequel novella. What else did I want to say about this book? Very heavy, very heavy. Obviously, this is a serial killer that is killing priests, but he's not killing them for no reason. I'm sure if you go on Storygraph, I'm sure there's a detailed list of trigger warnings. Will I be continuing the series? Oh, getting ahead of myself. The ending. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm gonna give it a 4.75, maybe even a 4.5. I don't remember again what I gave it. We built up to something. There is a twist at the end that I'm not gonna say I saw coming, but I'm also not surprised by it. But the overall ending, as far as like what the serial killer goes, it was a bit like, really, that's how we're ending it? It felt a little lackluster in my opinion, but the journey to get there, you know, was just so gripping and, dare I say, fun. This is a series. Obviously, you should probably read book 1 first because book 2, Laws of Wrath. Laws of Wrath deals with something that we learned in book 1. Very excited to get to it. I am waiting. Let me check. My library's getting them both. Oh, my library app isn't on here. It should be on order. I haven't looked at it since then. Yeah, they still don't have it yet, but it's whatever. As soon as I can get them both. Hopefully I get them both at the same time. Books 2 and 3, I will get into it. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching. Comment down below your third... This is about to be so specific. Comment down below your third most recent emoji. Is that your most recent or most used? I guess it's most used because I read 3 books in this video, and I'll see you next week. Bye!